Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, once again, we're coming live from the Autodesk Gallery in San Francisco. New location, new exhibits behind us. It's a beautiful day. Today, we're going to be talking all about robotics in the construction industry. And to help tell that story, I'm joined by Tessa Lau, the CEO of Dusty Robotics. Tessa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Pleasure to be here, Eric.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we were finally able to connect. I've been following Dusty for a while because your team is doing some really cool stuff. And it's going to be fun to get into the weeds on, what you're bringing to the AECO industry and just talking about robotics a little bit more broadly as well. And I know your career is largely focused on robotics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. I'd love to hear more about how you found your way into starting a construction robotics company specifically.
So I call it physical AI, kind of blends together all the things that I've ever done. And Dusty is kind of the pinnacle of everything I've done in my career.
Okay.
So I started with a PhD in AI a long time ago, back before generative AI became a thing. Spent the first part of my career at IBM, where I was doing software for business process automation. And then I got into robotics. And I got into robotics because I realized that while software AI is great at automating things that live behind a screen, I really wanted to touch the world. And robots can move atoms, not bits. And so I got into robotics. I co-founded my first robotics company. That was called Savioke. Fortunately, we didn't make it. And then coming out of that, I wanted to create a company that would leverage all the learnings that I've had over my career. And so I founded Dusty.
I like it. And your point about the tangible aspect of robotics, it does really resonate. I think one of the interesting aspects that has brought me from construction into the technology side, even though I was usually in marketing and in working on proposals and contract modifications, I'm not necessarily building a physical thing anymore. Yeah. And I do miss that at times. And I'm always incredibly grateful when I have a chance to go out on a site walk. And I remember the first time I worked on a proposal that we in turn won. And then later I was able to go walk the site of the thing that we wrote about and just, there's this physical asset now. I didn't just produce a binder of paper or an electronic document. And it's a really cool connection to the world.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about the construction industry is the pride that builders take when they look at the things that they've been able to build.
Absolutely.
So when we were doing customer discovery for Dusty, I started talking to all these construction people for the first time. We would be driving down the road and, in the Bay Area somewhere, and they'd be pointing at buildings saying like, I built that, I built that. And that pride is really what I think everyone in construction, that's why they're in it, is because they're creating a lasting impression on the world. And that's what I want to do too.
And there's so much complex problem solving that goes into every single building. I came out of school and I didn't have a degree in construction anything. I have a technical communication background. And I remember the first time I sat down at the first GC I worked for, all the acronyms are floating around. I don't know what we're talking about, very overwhelmed. And I remember it's probably about 6 months into that journey, it started to click and I'm throwing the acronyms out and starting to talk about it. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And that interest has just evolved over the years. And I'm incredibly grateful to talk to folks like yourselves who have found a place in this space because people are doing really cool work and it's really fun to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a bit more about the mission of Dusty Robotics specifically. What do the robots your team has built achieve for the crews that are out working out in the field?
So what we're doing is we are creating a single shared truth for everyone on the construction site.
Okay.
The observation when I got into construction is that you have a plan for what you want to build. That's often created with Autodesk technology. And then when it comes to actually building the thing, as soon as you start building, your plan is obsolete because it's changed, because people have requested modifications, because the site conditions are not what you thought they were. And so there's a constantly evolving plan. And yet the people who are building and doing the work don't always know what that plan is.
Yep.
In fact, one of our studies has shown that only 11% of the people in the field have access to all the information they need to build. That's a terrible statistic.
Yeah, it's a massive gap.
Yeah, it's a huge gap. And so that's what creates the conflict. That's what creates the rework in the field, is because people don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And so what Dusty is doing is creating that shared truth. And we're doing that by bridging the digital and the physical, by starting with the digital plan, the drawing, the 3D model, and making sure that everyone on site can see that, access it, and build exactly that.
Yeah.
And we do that with robotics.
And you told me when we first met that the space we're sitting in right now was laid out with a Dusty robot,
That's
right?
right.
Can you tell me a bit more about that? Like, how did you end up participating in this project? Like, thank you. Like, I love being in this space. It's such a cool place to hang out.
It's a beautiful space, and I love this space. And so This remodel was led by DPR Construction, who is one of Dusty's biggest customers, and they deployed 2 of our robots on this space. And so if you look around and you see every single thing that got installed, Dusty printed that on the ground.
That's so cool.
Especially like all of the baffles overhead
Yeah.
in the ceiling, every single one of those, we drew long lines down the length of this building in order to mark out exactly where those go, because Autodesk wanted a very perfect space. And that's what Dusty could give them.
I like it. And I mean, testament to that is you can see if you're watching this episode and not listening to it, the ceilings and everything, it's a very dramatic effect, to say the least. Tell me a bit more about the workflows that the robots enable and how you're able to improve productivity for the different stakeholders or add more of that certainty that you're talking about. I'd love it if you could just kind of peel back some more of the layers of the onion, so to speak.
So it starts with a single trade, and then it moves on to multi-trade. So with the single trade, the way layout gets done today is with chalk lines and string.
Yeah.
That was invented by the early Egyptians 5,000 years ago to build the Great Pyramids, and that's still how we're doing construction today. And so Dusty, the robot, our field printer, takes the digital drawings for a single trade and it prints them on the ground. And it does that with perfect accuracy, with up to 10x the speed of what a manual layout crew would do it today. And that gives you the certainty that what you're building is exactly what they wanted you to build. So your plan and your work start getting synchronized around that one shared truth that Dusty is printing. And where we go from there is now expanding that out to say, how do we get all of the trades on the same page at the same time? Each of them could use their own robot. But what we've actually discovered is that when all of those trades bring their digital designs together in one place through our portal, they can actually find conflicts and do field coordination a lot sooner than they would otherwise. And then when they walk the floor where all of their layout has been printed together, all the superintendents can gather around, figure out any problems that they might have not noticed up until this point, but that they might only notice once they're actually in the field, and they can resolve them before anything gets built.
I love that, because you're not standing there looking at a piece of conduit or HVAC installation and going, well, that electrical conduit is supposed to run right through where the plumbing is. And by that point, you've already built half of it. And now you have to rip something out or change something or delay a schedule. And I love the fact that you can just stand there and look at everything before you've put any of the features into the building and just go, all right, well, those are on top of each other. That's a problem. Yeah, it seems very straightforward.
We're shifting that work of field coordination left in the schedule. And so we're moving it upstream, we're moving it earlier. And so it can happen before anything gets built. It can now even happen in software before anyone even hits the field.
Yep. A lot of the VR stuff is interesting as well in that regard, where people are doing clash detection and are able to stand in the building and actually look and see, oh, that pipe's coming out of the ceiling in the wrong spot. I remember the evolution of VR in particular has been interesting for me, because I remember one of the first general contractors I worked for, the only thing we really used it for was to demo features of a building during the proposal and interview process to show them what it might look like. It was kind of a marketing tool, and the evolution of that technology has advanced so much. It's an exciting moment, I think, for all aspects of tech that touch the broader AECO industry. It's a pretty cool moment.
Some of our customers are actually printing out the entire layout of a home for the eventual homeowner. And so you as a homeowner, if you're commissioning a custom home, you can walk your slab before anything's been built. You can see where your kitchen's going to be, where your laundry room will be. You can walk through your bedrooms and imagine yourself living there. It's an amazing light bulb moment for the owner to actually see their home in 3D for the first time.
That's really cool too, because all the builders have a lot of existing knowledge. They know what they're building, and I think that's a privilege, I think, for the owners, especially somebody, whether they're doing something residential or if it's a commercial project. They might not have that experience to look at the plans and have a real good sense for it. Yeah. So be able to come out and do that site, because unless you're a serial builder, an owner might do 1 or 2 capital projects in their entire lifetime. And there's a lot of institutional knowledge to go into making sure that that's successful. And so it's cool that you give them more optics and what's happening and why, a chance to ask questions as well if something is a bit amiss, or I guess for an unintentional pun or intended, things don't line up.
Yeah, exactly.
Construction's obviously a risk management industry as well, because there is considerable risk because of all of the unknowns and change conditions and uncertainty that comes into a project. How do robotic layouts change where the risk shows up and presents itself during a project?
So when we first started Dusty, everyone thought that layout was something done by the subcontractors because the general contractors wanted to divest themselves of that risk and place that risk on the subcontractors. But it turns out that when you have a robot doing the layout, you're actually moving risk around.
Mhm.
You're actually reducing your risk. And so the subcontractors started reducing their risk by adopting Dusty. They would have fewer incidents where their plan would diverge from the reality that they were building. And then the general contractors realized, hey, this is a risk mitigation tool that I can start to bring into my workflow. The most adoption that we're seeing right now is at the general contractor level,
Okay.
who are seeing this as a way to de-risk coordination. Because one of the biggest risks that a GC has is that each of the trades does their own thing in a silo and they don't work together. And you only discover it when you're like 80% of the way done with your building.
Yeah, and there's 20 companies all working in the same
And
space.
everyone's already partially built out their thing.
Yep.
And you're ready to turn it over to the owner and it's not done, right? That coordination risk is what the GCs are trying to avoid. And so with Dusty, they can essentially simulate the building of the building earlier in software by bringing together all of the trades information, getting the trades to work together more closely around this shared artifact, and de-risking that coordination workflow.
Okay, so it sounds like the scope of what you're delivering isn't simply within the robot itself.
Right.
There's a broader ecosystem that gives this access to information and visibility that they just simply didn't have previously.
The real big insight is that it's not about the robot, it's about what does the robot enable.
Yeah.
One example, we're doing a case study right now with a local Bay Area contractor.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually returning millions of dollars to the owner because of a workflow improvement
Wow.
that Dusty enabled. Intuitively, it's really simple. They reduced the number of mobilizations and they reordered the order in which work gets done on a job. And because they did that, because each trade did not have to mobilize once to do the layout, then go away and then come back later, they were able to present a perfectly clear floor to the mechanical crew who was coming in. That mechanical crew doubled their productivity because they didn't have to work around all of the partially installed walls and the stuff that was sitting around on the floor from the previous crews who came through before. They came in, they installed all their stuff, and then they were done. And they saved a couple $1 million just in labor costs alone by increasing their productivity. And that's not because of the robot, but it's because the robot enables a new way of doing construction.
I love that point too. And it's such an interesting lens on innovation and technology adoption in construction as well, because there's a couple different paths I think you can take where you're chasing tech just for the sake of chasing tech. And I think there is some value in that because historically construction hadn't been a tech-focused industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years. I tire seeing some of those graphics that say, oh, construction's not productive. I don't think it could be further from the truth. Innovation at its core is when you do get to start disrupting and changing how we go about the process because there's a really good reason to make that change.
Yeah.
Like construction stayed the same for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years for a very good reason, because there was an institution and a lot of knowledge that was built in how you can build things with what was available. And the things that have become available have changed so dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. It's an important moment for contractors to step back and go, well, what can we change?
Yeah.
What aspects of the way we build don't have to follow the same linear order as they did historically? And I think that's where things start getting really exciting.
Yep, that's exactly right. And for me, what's really exciting about this is that we can actually change the workflows in construction, right? It's been done the same way for millennia because that's been determined to be the best way to do things. But technology changes that game, and robotics changes that game. One of the best examples I have of how a different workflow can be enabled in construction is we build a lot of data centers. Mm-hmm. One of our customers, Mortensen, does a lot of data centers with Dusty. And we learned about a project where they had a problem with delivery of an air handler. It was a big unit.
Big AHU, yeah.
At HVAC unit, and everything had to connect up to it. All the ductwork that led throughout the facility would have to connect up to this air handler unit. And so you can imagine the workflow normally without Dusty is you have to put the air handler in first, and then you install all the stuff around it so that it lines up, so that it matches up. But when you use Dusty, you have certainty as to where everything's going to land. You know exactly, and you can print it with a high level of precision. But with Dusty, what that enables is you can actually install all the ductwork first. And then if that air handler happens to be delayed, you can just install it whenever it shows up. You can drop it in and it's going to fit. And that's the magic of Dusty. You can parallelize the install.
Yeah.
You're no longer blocked on one single piece of equipment that might have a long lead time.
It makes sense because those pieces of equipment are so complex. There's so much that goes into it and the level of interconnection. It's great that you don't have to delay your schedule. You don't have to sit and wait because we're still dealing with supply chain issues now. And so to be able to proceed in that moment with certainty, and I think the certainty is the big force multiplier there, it puts the owner and the contractor in a really great position.
Yeah. Yeah. And so really the best outcomes from our customers are ones that are willing to change their workflow, to really trust the technology and do things maybe in a different order, because that's where you get the real gains.
Yeah. For the contractors that you interact with or speak with who maybe are a bit more hesitant to adopt robotics and new workflows or tech, what do you feel usually holds them back from making some of these changes or adoptions and new tools and technologies?
Well, I mean, I get it. It's all about risk.
Yeah.
And you've survived this long by doing things the way you know how to do them, by minimizing your risk and adopting the workflows that have been successful for you, right? That's why construction gets passed down from grandfather to father to son, right? Because they've proven through their hard work, they figured out a method for doing the work. And that's what they teach the next generation and the next generation. One of the reasons construction is slow to adopt technology is because there's a desire to not take on any additional risk, right? And any new thing that you might try might mean that you lose money on this project.
Yep.
It might mean you go out of business if you make the wrong bet. And that's what everyone's trying to avoid.
It's a high stakes environment, and I can understand why folks are always very concerned when they're making changes. And I think you can empower your teams to do that safely and successfully. Yep. And you have to give them that freedom to try and possibly fail if you've chosen a new tool that yep. doesn't fit into your workflow. But if you're not giving folks the runway to do that and you feel like you have to stay with that status quo approach, long term, I think that brings more risk to their organizations because yeah. all the competitors are starting to make these changes yeah. and becoming more tech savvy and yeah. bringing in talent who is excited to use modern tools and tech. I hate the old tropes of construction is just pounding nails and digging holes because it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, yeah. we have drones, we have robotics, we have 3D printers, laser scanners, yeah. all of this really exciting technology that turns construction into a very exciting and lucrative field to yeah. play and come in and work and learn and just thrive. But we have to do a better job of selling it, I think, at times as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so what we figured out is that in order to get robotic adoption into construction, what we recommend to our customers is you start with a crawl, walk, run philosophy, mm-hmm. right? You start taking your baby steps at first, and that might just mean bringing a robot on to do one trade's layout, right? You learn that, you figure out how it works, you start trusting that process, and then you start moving faster. And yeah. then you start bringing more trades on, then you start printing more information, and before you know it, you're like a Dusty expert, and you've created new jobs to be robot operators in your organization.
I love all the new types of roles that are showing up in construction too. Like I keep seeing new like data analyst positions at GCs and prompt engineering tied to AI and all kinds of different roles. And it's really opening the gates to just bringing in new people. And obviously we have to fill all the seats that are either already empty or will be soon with folks that are retiring. So yeah, I love that you're contributing to this very exciting ecosystem of advanced technology that impacts an industry that touches every human in the entire world.
It touches everyone. Yeah, and that's why I'm excited about this industry. My belief is that construction is inherently an information industry. It's all about the knowledge, the data that drives the construction of these buildings. The building is the side effect,
yeah.
right? But the information is what really drives that process through.
The tools now that we have mean that information carries on to the next project in a way more effective way than it had historically too. Like artificial intelligence is really introducing the ability to, I think, infer and analyze data for folks who don't know how to use Power BI or dig into the depth of the data. I mean, you have a SharePoint folder with 2 million documents in it and you end the project and you just walk away. Yep. And I don't think that's the case anymore for the folks that are really out there moving things forward and, adopting tools like Dusty and the level of data and analysis that you're offering to your customers as well.
One of the things we see with our longer term customers is that they start creating standards around automated layout. And this is really interesting to watch because we're basically creating a visual language that everyone on the job site can now understand. And when you develop that standardized language, that means that every time you set foot on a Dusty site, it looks the same, which means you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Which means that uncertainty of, do I have the right crew? Do they know what to do? That gets minimized in order to create more standardized outcomes on every single job.
I like it. Looking back to the potential skeptics or folks who have been uncertain about it, is there a common aha moment for folks who you've finally been able to get them to go, oh, okay, I get this now? Like, what does that look like more often than not?
What we hear a lot is people seeing all of our videos online. They watch every single one of them, and they still can't believe it's as good as it is.
Yeah.
And so the moment they actually see it in person, they get convinced. The light bulb goes off. They take a measuring tape, they put it down on the ground, and they measure out to make sure our accuracy is what we claim it is. And then they're like sold.
And I've seen your robots at a number of conferences now, so I'm so glad that we're actually getting to talk about them today. It's just really cool. Like, it's just really neat. I'm excited that we're able to bring in new tech to an industry that has needed some improvements and changes for a long time. This is a fun moment, to say the least. We hear a lot about the convergence of construction and manufacturing in recent years. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the role robotics play, especially tied to prefabricated construction.
When I first started exploring construction in 2018, I thought it would be a lot more like manufacturing. I'm a roboticist. And so in my world, everything's built by a robot. You've got robots in your factories. Your delivery online gets serviced by a robot. But construction was not at all like that.
Bespoke projects for everybody.
It's bespoke. It's all manual labor. It's data on paper, not online. And so I saw this huge opportunity to bring some of the automation that has transformed manufacturing and bring that into construction and really modernize the construction workflow.
And that's really accelerated in the last 5 years, I think, in an exciting way. I've heard so many folks who looked at prefab historically and they go, that's a boring square box that isn't interesting to look at. And when I go to bring the prefabricated elements into my job site, it doesn't fit. Or I don't know how to deal with this, and we've got to modify it on site. And like, the tools early on weren't necessarily available to introduce enough certainty to make sure that they fit. And I think that with the increase in offsite manufacturing, the increase in precision in the tools and building those elements, but I think tools like Dusty help you bring those prefabricated elements and stand them up, and they should fit now because everything has been laid out with more certainty than you had previously.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons prefab didn't take off the first time was because they didn't have layout certainty. And so a lot of our customers do prefab in conjunction with automated layout. And the reason they do that is because when you bring the pieces to the job site, if they don't fit, you're screwed. You have to go back to the factory, you have to build it again, and that's going to introduce this delay that you don't have time for on your schedule. And so with Dusty, you can actually get what we call a fully paperless workflow. You can design it based off the digital model. You can fab it based off the digital model. You can lay it out based off of the digital model and build it. And there's no paper anywhere.
Nice.
And that workflow allows you to get all of the benefits of that prefabricated offsite manufacturing and all the benefits of digital construction.
What a change in the last 15 years. I mean, the iPad is a big reason why I'm sitting in front of you right now. I joined Autodesk via the PlanGrid acquisition and started digitizing drawings. I mean, prior to that, just the wagons of prints and plans and everything you'd have to drag around, and the uncertainty that introduced, especially when there were changes. Bigger projects means there's more people to distribute new plans to. We're building stuff off of old documentation, and it's just an exciting moment now where more and more tools beyond just iPads are really adding that certainty into the industry in a way that benefits all stakeholders, not just the GC or the owner or the subcontractors. I think everybody gets to play a more certain and impactful role.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that one shared truth idea that I was talking about before. With PlanGrid, the people who had access to that truth were the lucky few who got access to an iPad in the field. But with Dusty, everyone can see it. It's under their feet.
I love that too.
And we're democratizing that plan and making it accessible to everyone.
Like if I don't know how to use an iPad, it doesn't matter because it's literally right there on the ground. That's cool. Well, I know we talked about AI briefly, or I brought it up a moment ago, but I'd be curious to hear more of your thoughts on the role that you feel it's playing in construction robotics specifically, and what do you see happening in the future in this regard as well?
I think Robotics is where AI meets the field. One of the things that we do at Dusty is we extend the digital frontier farther out into the physical world than it used to be before. Because the problem that we started tackling, layout, is where the digital meets reality for the first time. And that's where you take your digital drawing and you try to translate that into the real world.
Yep.
And with Dusty and with robotic layout and our suite of solutions, what we're doing is we're extending that digital world farther out into the field. And so now, instead of building off of paper drawings or building off of hand-drawn lines, you're building off the digital model, the exact same model that everyone's creating in the office. And so that is like the convergence of digital and field. And that's what we're calling physical AI. That's really where it's the juxtaposition of the digital domain that AI traditionally lives in, the physical reality where the actual building gets built. And when you bring those two together, physical AI is like the nexus of those two.
It makes sense. You can tell I'm a tech optimist just by, how I'm talking about everything here today, but I'm just very excited, especially with the acceleration of AI in the last even 2 months. It's a really exciting inflection point where 2-3 years ago, especially tied to agentic AI or LLMs, there's a lot of skepticism, and very understandably so. And the pace that these tools and technologies have evolved really are adding applicable moments to construction now. It's not just I'm playing with my AI agent because it's neat and can answer some questions. People are out in the field querying ChatGPT tied to or Copilot tied to all of their construction documentation, and can make inferences and analysis and access data at a depth that I wish I had had when I was a proposal manager, chasing old RFPs that we'd responded to or just historical legacy information. I have had a couple conversations along this lines of, you had to have so much institutional knowledge from somebody who worked on that particular proposal 10 years ago to even know any of the language that might be relevant to this new one was even there. And I think it's all changed now, where you're just able to introduce and ingest all of this data into your tools. And now you can make choices and access that in a way that feels way more democratic for everybody in your organization, but also I think just makes people feel more nimble and saves a ton of time. It's a really cool moment.
And we're just scratching the surface, right? I think there's a lot more innovation that's going to happen before we're done. The way we think about it is, what if you can have the most experienced superintendent in the palm of your hand, watching over your shoulder as you're building, right? You no longer need to have all of that hard-won experience yourself, but AI is going to bring that to everyone. And it's going to give people the skills that they didn't have the time to develop. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Like the work in the field is going to get transformed.
I'd agree entirely. I think we're just really starting to touch this. 5 years from now, I'm very curious to see where things sit and how immersed folks are. I'm curious too, what parts of the construction industry more broadly do you think are ready for deeper automation or the implementation of robotics?
Dusty is actually being used all across all the different types of construction projects, from the biggest data center all the way down to like a single family home. And so we're seeing firsthand the change that robotics and automation is having on this industry that has never seen anything like this before. And so it's really interesting to watch. At the high end, that's where we've seen the most investment in tech and automation. But then it quickly trickles down. And what I'm seeing is that the pace of that trickling down is accelerating. And so even the single family home builders are starting to embrace robotics because they realize that they have to do that in order to stay competitive.
The amount of housing that we need to build and the amount of renovation and infrastructure improvements in the United States just itself, now is the time to really adopt and streamline the way we work, because we need to build a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of work to be done. Stepping outside of construction, or even if it is in the AEC space, what about robotics are you just really excited about right now? Like what do you see making a big difference today or in the future?
So I'm actually really excited about AI. I think everyone is. But my particular flavor of AI that I'm excited about is, how do we use it to accelerate the pace of innovation? It took us 8 years to get to this point. What if it takes us less time to get to the next inflection point, right? How can we leverage AI to make our people smarter, to make us innovate faster, to try and fail at a much faster rate than we were doing before. That's one of the things I get really excited about is like, what is the nature of work going to look like in this new future? Because AI is changing, it's not just changing knowledge work, it's changing all work. And, we're part of the making that happen in construction. But it's the question I ask of everyone on my team, right? How can we become AI native? How can we use AI to innovate faster and to learn faster in order to change the rate at which we are bringing technology to market and actually helping our customers be better as quickly as possible?
It's definitely an exciting moment. I briefly studied computer science in college, one semester, and I realized, ooh, this isn't how my brain works. And I stepped into technical communication, which contributed to me sitting here today. But I've been playing around a little bit with vibe coding just to see, because I keep hearing about it. And me not having any knowledge or perspective at all, I've been able to create a couple goofy little video games based on just simple language prompts. And I have no knowledge. I don't remember anything. I learned in that one semester when I was in school way back when. And so I think just the democratization of skills and the ability to create things that somebody would have had to employ an engineer for might not anymore is just really interesting and exciting. Obviously, there are some security risks that come with that. If you are deploying code that you vibe coded and don't know, what questions to ask to make sure you're safe in what you're doing. So I think people need to be cautious, obviously, but the pace of change and the access to being able to do new and interesting things, regardless of who that person is just a very cool moment. And I think the data analysis that comes with that and all of these bigger changes with the way we manage and process information, it's really cool. I'm a nerd, so as you can probably tell, I'm pretty excited right now.
Programming is dead.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not going to be doing programming in the future. But what we are going to be doing is, I think of it as product design, right? If you can imagine it, you can build it. And we're getting incrementally closer to that vision over time. It used to be you needed a programmer in order to turn your imagination into reality. Now you just describe it to a machine. Maybe in the future, you just think it and then it becomes real. And that's where we're going. Yeah,
it's an exciting and sometimes mildly terrifying moment as far as just the scale and pace of change in front of us. But I am encouraged, especially when we're dealing with labor challenges and knowledge retention challenges when folks retire and all the different challenges that the AECO industry faces. I think this overlay of technology that we're able to apply is going to help start narrowing some of those gaps. And it's a moment to be optimistic about the future of the construction industry more broadly. I have one more question for you today. It's one I ask everybody. What's one tool that you use on every project, regardless of what you're working on?
So I already talked about AI. I'll talk about a different aspect of AI. A lot of my work is communication. I do a lot of evangelism. I do a lot of team alignment, team building and trying to get a message out. And when you're creating a new category in a new space, you have to be really good at communication because you're trying to get someone else to believe what's in your head. And they might never have even imagined that could be done. And so you have to figure out, how do you communicate? Like, how do I take this thing in my head and get it in front of someone? And that's a communication task. And so the one thing that I love nowadays about the new AI tools that are out there, they help me communicate better. And I don't mean they write my emails for me, but I mean that I'm getting a built-in thought partner that can help debate and critique messaging, that can help, propose ideas and let me shoot them down or vice versa. And I'm finding that really accelerates both the quality and the speed of the communication.
That's a really cool example. I mean, for some reason, I'm thinking about my math teacher in high school, and he was absolutely brilliant. He understood mathematics in a way that I couldn't even imagine being able to understand. Very nice man. And it was hard for him to communicate the knowledge he had in his head to us because he didn't know what it was like not to know all the things that he knew. And so you're making me think of the interesting problem where you go, okay, I understand this deeply. Help me play with the language I use to bring this to a novice or somebody who isn't familiar with robotics or mathematics or whatever that might be. I might be coming way out of left field here as far as what your example is, but that's kind of what comes to mind. It's
that's exactly right. Like yesterday, I vibe coded an executive dashboard to explain some really complex fleet management concepts to my exec team.
Nice.
And it was a visual thing, right? It would have taken me a couple of weeks or months to build that myself. without AI, but AI actually amplifies that communication. It allows me to figure out what's in my head and get it into someone else's head more quickly than I ever thought possible.
I love it. Well, Tessa, thank you so much for joining me today on Digital Builder. For everybody out there listening, you've likely figured out by now I'm Eric Thomas, the host of the show. If you want to reach out and ask me any questions, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. We're a video first podcast. You heard us talking about this beautiful space that we're sitting in right now. So make sure you head over to YouTube and watch. Otherwise, of course, we're on Apple, Spotify, and all the other standard players. And until next time, goodbye.